Good day, my friend.
Hello, sir. Yeah, this is pretty exciting here.
Yeah.
I like this new setup.
I love the
think
new
well
setup.
worth it.
And it gives some people who might not have the books or downloaded the PDF some context so they can actually
Just
read
so you
along.
know, you've got a lot of stuff down there across the bottom.
I don't know how to get rid of that. I don't know how to get
Yeah.
rid of that.
I mean,
It's
whatever.
okay. It's just my bazillion different applications on my computer that we're not using at this time. So the important stuff is right here. So, all right. Well, I'm going to get right into it because I know both of us have a time we need to exit today. So
All
we
right, well, this is
are
exciting. And
Yeah.
oh, by the way, just so you know, I don't know how big this section is, but Carla said that she was going to come on with us after the 25th or 26th and do an astrology video with us again.
Oh, great. Well, it's perfect timing because we'll probably finish this
Either this week or
out
next
just in
week, I
time
guess.
after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
I want her to explain some of the, I have questions is what I'm saying.
Well,
This
don't we always?
these Neptune energies and some of these energies from the outer planets and how they help us and the transformative properties of Pluto and the subtle energies and of Neptune and these things. It's incredible because I think, we're all experiencing that in some way or another. And, it's funny, man, just to throw this out there. We're all in the same age group, basically, and even the people studying this material
Right.
are basically all in the same age group. So we're all probably, familiar with that stuff. So anyway, sorry, but yeah, love this topic.
Well, I think we're all the same age anyway, right? We're all eternal. Anyway.
Yeah. Some
All
of
right.
these bodies could be traded in.
Yeah, and they will be. But for now, here we are. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. So I don't think we'll get through all of this, but we are rounding out towards the end of Rule 10 finally. So we're in the last subsection of Rule 10 with astrology and the energies, which appears right at the top of page 434 in the blue book. And if folks are still following along with the PDF, that is, it looks like page 204 in the PDF version. So yeah, we're doing a little something different now. We invested some money into the software, so we have the set of books, and we're going to be reading that and casting it on the screen. And as you can see, we also have the 7 planes of our solar system chart along the side, just since we often reference that as we're going through the materials. So here we go with the astrologies and the energies. To these 2 energies, a third group of energies must be added, and these are the basis of much of our astrological research. They emanate from the 12 constellations, which form our solar zodiac. Their effect is infinite, and the permutations of these 3 groups of energies lead to the infinite complication which we find in nature. The claims of the astrologers as to the reality of the energies playing upon the human organism can be seen to be true. Their claims as to their capacity to interpret are for the most part unfounded. So little is really known by the highest intelligence on the planet, for forget not that the adepts utilize primarily the intuition. These energies leave their mark upon every form and every kingdom in nature, acting as a retrograding or stimulating force. They carry one type of energy onto a fuller expression of the quality of any form, or hold another back from a developed manifestation. It is not opportune here to outline the nature of true astrology. that astrology is a science, and a coming science is true. That astrology in its highest aspect and its true interpretation will enable man eventually to focus his understanding and to function rightly is equally true. That in the revelations that astrology will make in time to come will be found the secret of the true coordination between soul and form is also correct. But that astrology is not yet to be found. Too much is overlooked and too little known to make astrology the exact science that many claim it is. The claim will be fulfilled at some future date, but the time is not yet. Certain factors which astrologers should bear in mind, and certain conditions they are only too apt to forget, may however be briefly noted. For the sake of clear understanding, we will simply tabulate a number of statements which should be studied with care by the average investigator in this field. I cannot here write a treatise on energies with the astrology. I cannot here write a treatise on the energies with which astrology should deal, sorely as such a treatise is needed. Astrologers concern themselves primarily with three types of energy. A, the energy of the constellation in which the sun is posited at the time of birth. B, the rising sign to which the man should respond. And C, the moon, which governs his form aspect, and particularly the physical form. The energy of the particular constellation or sign in which a man is born is more deeply significant than has ever yet been suggested. It embodies or indicates his present problem, sets the pace or tempo of his life, and is related to the quality of his personality. It governs, if I may so express it, the rajasic or activity aspect of his life during incarnation. The ascendant or rising sign indicates the line along which his energy as a whole can flow if he is to fulfill the purpose of any incarnation. This, of course, is rightly handled. It holds the secret of his future, and in its symbolism and understanding, he can find the clue to his life problem and an indication of what he can be and achieve. It presents to him the type of force which will enable him to succeed. This, when duly consummated, might be regarded as producing the sattvic or harmony aspect of his life, for when it plays its part and is utilized, it produces harmony with the will of the soul during any particular incarnation. In the moon influence, we have indicated the native's past. It summarizes the limitations and handicaps under which he must work, and therefore might be regarded as embodying the tamasic aspect of matter, or that which holds back, and which, if permitted to influence unduly, will produce inertia. In the body with which man is equipped lies hid the secret of past experience, and every lunar form through which we have to arrive at due expression is in itself the product or synthesis of all the past. Let me see if I can put the present truth about astrology in such simple guise that they who know not of this intricate science may understand. The birth month indicates the day of opportunity. The door stands open. The particular month in which a soul comes into incarnation is indicated to that soul by the month in which it passed out of incarnation in a previous life cycle. If it, for instance, died in the month governed by the sign Leo, it will return into incarnation in the same sign, picking up the thread of experience where it left it, and starting with the same type of energy and the peculiar equipment with which it passed away from Earth life, plus the gain of thought and conscious onlooking. The quality of the energy and the nature of the forces to be manipulated during life are indicated to the soul in this way. The rising sign, embodying another type of energy, should wax in strength during the incarnation, for it indicates the nature of the soul force that the incarnated Son of God is seeking to wield through the medium of a particular personality, possessing certain characteristics. The influence of the moon is primarily physical. The prison of the soul is thus indicated. The handicaps to be met are thus secured. the type of body or of bodies through which the force of the native sign and the quality of the energy which will bring him to his goal are thus defined. Through the medium of the lunar lords and what they have given him as the result of past experience down the ages, must he express himself upon the physical plane. Owing to the precession of the equinoxes, a situation is brought about in which a fourth type of force makes itself felt. The sun is, in reality, many degrees away in the great ground of the heavens from where it is stated to be, as far as the greater zodiac is concerned. This is, of course, from the standpoint of time. As the sweep of the sun through a constellation covers a period of approximately 2,200 years, the shift in the course of the centuries is very slight, so slight that little difference would be noted in the casting of the planetary horoscope. In the casting of the horoscope of a solar system, it would be of vital importance, but this is so far beyond the capacity of the wisest astrologer on our planet that discussion is immaterial. In casting the horoscope of a human being who is born in a particular month, however, it should be borne in mind, which it seldom is, that now the month and the sign do not coincide at all. The sun is really not in Leo, for instance, during the month of August. The correct interpretation, therefore, of a chart is largely psychometrical and dependent upon the thought form of the constellation which has been built up for ages by the astrologers. Energy follows thought. For thousands of years, certain types of energy and their consequent qualifying effects on substance and form have been considered to be thus and so. Therefore, thus they are, except in the case of the highly evolved, of the true aspirant who has oriented himself and is thus escaping from the wheel of existence and beginning to govern his stars, and so is no longer under their rule and domination. Astrology now deals primarily with the personality for whom the horoscope may be cast and with the events of the personality life. When, through meditation and service, plus the disciple of the lunar bodies, a man comes consciously and definitely under his soul ray, then he comes as definitely under the influence of one or other of the 7 solar systems, as they focus their energy through one or other of the constellations and subsequently one or other of the 7 sacred planets. Eventually, there will be 12 sacred planets, corresponding to the 12 constellations, but the time is not yet. Our solar system, as you know, is one of 7. When a man has arrived at this point in evolution, birth months, mundane astrology, and the influences which play upon the form aspect become of less and less importance. This circle of solar systems affects paramountly the soul, and it becomes the focal point of spiritual energies. This is the problem of the soul on its own plane. Responsiveness to these types of energy, and of them the personality, is totally unaware. The signs which fall, therefore, into the 4 categories of earth, water, fire, and air concern primarily the man who lives below the diaphragm and who utilizes the lower 4 centers: the center at the base of the spine, the sacral center, the solar plexus, and the spleen. The inner group of 7 major or systemic energies produce their effect upon the man who is living above the diaphragm and work through the 7 representative centers in the head. 4 of them focus through the throat center, the heart center, the ajna, and head centers. 3 are held latent in the region of the head centers, the 1,000-petaled lotus, and only enter into functioning activity after the 3rd initiation. It will be evident, therefore, how complicated from the standpoint of the horoscope, as well as of the individual problem, is the meeting of the energies of 2 types of constellations in the case of the man who is neither purely human nor purely spiritual. The ordinary horoscope is negated. The horoscope is not possible as yet of delineation. The only horoscope which is basically and almost infallibly correct is that of the entirely low-grade human being who lives entirely below the diaphragm and is governed by his animal nature alone. Astrologers must remember also that there are several undiscovered planets which are producing pulls and shifts and focusing streams of energy upon our Earth, which tend to complicate the problem still further. Pluto is one of them, and having now emerged into manifestation, or rather into recognition, to it will be assigned all the unexplained conditions. Pluto will be made the scapegoat for faulty astrology for a long time to come. This chart failed to work and be true because Pluto must be influential in it, and we must know little about Pluto. The story will run. Yet Pluto has always been revolving around our sun and producing its effects. It governs, however, the death or cessation of old ideas and emotions, and its influence is therefore largely cerebral, and in that you have the clue to its late discovery. Mankind is only on the verge of becoming mental. Its effects are felt first in the mental body. The names of the planets are not the result of arbitrary choice, but the planets name themselves. Astrologers will eventually find it necessary to cast 3 horoscopes or 3 charts. One purely physical dealing with the body of nature, one primarily emotional, and dealing with the equality of the personality and with its sensitivity or state of awareness. The third will be the chart of the mental impulses and conditions. It will be found that these 3 charts will take certain geometrical lines. The lines of energies will form patterns. These 3 charts, superimposed one upon the other, will give the personality diagram, the individual life pattern. Amazing symbolic charts and lineal forms will be found to emerge when this is done, and the geometry of the individual will grow out of this, for it will be found that each line will function in relation to another line, and the trends of the life energies will become apparent. Eventually, even in this department of knowledge, the star will shine forth. This will constitute a new branch of psychology, and its true exponent for our age will duly be found. I but indicate the lines of the future astrology in order to safeguard the present. One thing astrologers need at this time to do, and that is to make due allowance for this transition period out of Pisces into Aquarius. This is seldom done, but it is evident that the tremendous turmoil incident to these transitions affects the individual chart and frequently offsets individual destiny or karma. People are submerged in planetary and racial destinies, and their own tiny affairs are offset almost entirely and sometimes completely negated. It is not possible to cast the horoscope of the planet, and those who propose to do so are deceiving themselves and others. The horoscope of the 4th kingdom in nature, of humanity, will eventually be cast, but it will be done by initiates, and there are no initiate astrologers working on the physical plane at this time. One hint here I give. The sun was in Sagittarius when the first human tendencies struggled to the fore. The stage of animal man was completed, and when Sagittarius was dominant, from our planetary standpoint, I'm using words with care, but when Sagittarius was dominant, the great event of individualization took place. But the brain of the then human being failed to register what had happened. In the words of the old commentary, the sons of God shot forth like arrows from the bow. The forms received the impulse, and lo, a god was born. The tiny babe knew not the great event. This took place 21 million years ago. Cycles passed, and when at a later date the sun was in Leo, approximately 18 million years ago, the first instances of coordination between brain and mind took place, and the human being was definitely self-conscious. He registered his individuality. The figures for the first date, though exactness is not possible in a system of mutation such as ours, are 21,688,345 years ago. It's a long time. These figures are useless at this time, for they can neither be proved correct nor incorrect. Later investigation will prove their usefulness when the nature of time is better understood. Sagittarius governs human evolution, for it symbolizes progress towards a conscious goal. Leo governs the human consciousness in the human kingdom, for the energy pouring through it enables man to say, I am. Too far. It might be of value if I here attempted a translation necessarily inadequate of the key word of each sign. These fall into two categories as far as humanity is concerned. There is the key word for the form aspect and the key word for the soul aspect. In the first case, the word is expressed. In the second, it is consciously spoken by the soul. Translated into modern terms, much is lost, but the underlying thought which directs the work of the emanating energies is of value. For our world period, they are as follows. For the aspirant who progresses from Aries to Pisces and has therefore reoriented himself, we have Aries, I come forth, and from the plane of mind, I rule. Taurus, I see, and when the eye is opened, all is illumined. Gemini, I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. Cancer, I build a lighted house, and therein dwell. Leo, I am that, and that am I. Virgo, I am the mother and the child. I, God, I matter am. Libra, I choose the way that leads between the two great lines of force. Scorpio, warrior I am, and from the battle I emerge triumphant. Sagittarius, I see the goal. I reach the goal and see another. Capricorn, lost am I in light supernal, and on that light I turn my back. Aquarius, water of life am I, poured forth for thirsty men. And Pisces, I leave the Father's home, and turning back, I save. Those both up there. From the standpoint of the form, the life proceeds in a reverse direction, and the work of nature is seen under the following words. For Pisces, and the word said, go forth into matter. Aquarius, and the word said, let desire and form be ruler. Capricorn, and the word said, let ambition rule and the door stand wide. Sagittarius, and the form said, let food be sought. Scorpio, and the word said, let Maya flourish and deception rule. Libra, and the world said, let choice be made. Virgo, and the word said, let matter reign. Leo, and the word said, let other forms exist, I rule. Cancer, and the word said, let isolation be the rule and yet the crowd exists. Gemini, and the word said, let instability do its work. Taurus, and the word said, let struggle be undismayed. And Aries, and the word said, let form again be sought. Oh, wow. We're just about done with rule 10 here. It will be noted that all these ideas concern the work of energy in some form or another. And in the last grouping, with the work of the so-called unregenerate selfish, and let me start that over. It will be noted that all these ideas concern the work of energy in some form or another. And in the last grouping, with the work of the so-called unregenerate selfish individual, full of desire for satisfaction. The group of mantric words used by the aspirant in the power of his own soul are positive. It seems needless to deal further with the various types of force, and we shall now turn our attention to rule 11. So we've concluded rule 10, but we should stop there. Do you have thoughts, sir? On what
I
we
got a
just
lot of
read?
thoughts.
So let's tell you. And if you need me to go back to a point of reference in the pages, just let me know and I can scroll back.
Yeah, this this sums it up really well right here. There's a lot that can be gathered from this, I want to say, especially by looking at the accumulation of these standpoints from the form.
Mm-hmm.
This has a lot to do with what we talked about. This place is hard.
Yeah.
Right.
No doubt. Right.
And it needs to be hard.
Yeah.
It says it here that it's going to be hard. And then, if you switch back up to the top and kind of go and reverse it, you're looking at it from the other perspective at this point, right?
Right.
So, let's go. Yeah, it's just it's unbelievable, man. I mean, I did the math on that 21 million years, and if you add that up and do a little reductionist math,
Mm-hmm.
it adds up to 1.
How about
Talking
that?
about individuality, right? So we're back to 1, and that individuality. I want to say Carla had talked about this at one point, and she said, this is when you break free from the collective, really, at that point too. That's a higher, I want to say that's probably a higher expression of it. But when you no longer are going with, with what the collective's doing, you recognize your sovereignty, and then you're moving out on what you know to be right at that point, regardless of what everybody else is doing. And that's a pretty big step, man. But that's, I don't know if this is exactly correct, but I want to say that's like the first initiation, right? And it makes sense that this happened way back 21 million years ago,
Mm-hmm.
too, by the way, because in Atlantean times, the highest initiation that was possible was the 4th, or so I should say, right now in this Aryan world is the 5th, right? In Atlantean, it was the 4th. In Lemurian, it was the 3rd was the highest. And they look different, but that would insinuate that this would fit, that first initiation would fit in there. So that being individualization. And that's a big step, much bigger thing than I think you and I, we certainly resonate with that, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
You broke free.
Yeah.
That's a big deal for people.
Yeah. Wasn't there something in the beginning I read about the prisoner of the soul or something like that?
Yeah.
The moon had to do with the moon
lunar
sign,
lords.
right?
Yeah. We've got to break free from that. And because you can see the cycle of the moon and how, I mean, it's been mentioned, you got lunatics and, no offense, but, people do get wacky on full moons, and there are the cycles, and the animals have their cycle, their lunar, run with the lunar cycle. Other human functions run alongside of the human or the lunar cycles. Some of our desire nature even runs along with that as it waxes. And when we look at that intelligently, though, and we use the cycles intelligently, you're in a whole different world, bro. When you're using this as it's designed to be used,
right?
Because now you're looking at, farming and, and being intelligent about the whole thing, and then knowing the body and having that awareness. It's just a whole different world once we're aware. Pluto and these planets, they have a big part in that transformation.
Right.
And it's interesting that really, one of those statements about Pluto right there.
Yeah.
That caught me, that caught my attention pretty quickly. We made
well, you went through a Pluto transit recently, didn't you?
Or
was that last year?
About 4 years ago, I think.
Okay.
I think it was about 4 years ago now.
And those hit you hard, right?
Yeah, that's really like and my cousin Melissa, remember, she was with us. She went through last year, and that's really like the midlife. That's one of the midlife crisis.
We've talked
but it's
about
very
that before, right?
It's also the one where awakening happens, like actual awakening. And I want to say it's the awakening into individuality, in a sense. And I just from the way that I feel that this runs, but talking about Pluto there, it was interesting to see how this is mental, like this is subtle energies, and we didn't recognize this because of the subtleties of it, right? We just found this planet to be significant in terms of astrology, and DK makes mention that all the other planets except for the Earth are etheric. So we're receiving this in very subtle ways. It registers into the mind, I guess, in very subtle ways as it comes down through the planes that we're looking at over on the right. It comes down, that energy makes its way here from the outside. And it's on the, I want to say that stems from the Buddha. It's either the Buddha or I want to say it's in the Buddha plane, and it sits at the, also at the high levels of the mental plane. That's something to talk about with Carlo.
Yeah.
Because I don't actually know. I'm just kind of pondering. But that seems to be the way I remember it. But anyway, what do you got? I'm gonna shut up. Oh, right there. Its effects are first felt in the mental body. And I guess that's really how it comes down anyway. The effects are first always going to be felt in the mental body and then come down. Right? And then we have these seven, these seven planes and the seven rays, and all of these things are interconnected with
Oh, we've
the
got seven
seven sacred
planets, right?
planets. And then how that energy is used and makes its way down and is all the way down into the brain, or into the mind and to our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have these physical plane expressions because of this influence. It's really
Right.
Interesting. But as we gain control of the physical plane and we gain control of the emotional plane, then that is no longer having us in thrall, right? It's no longer holding us prisoner, essentially, because now we're working with it, hopefully. So the chart, and it's always appropriate, to correlate them.
Well, this also exhibits the importance of astrology. I mean, it's so foundational in all of this, right?
Well, yeah, because right here, once
where am I going?
Once you're on the path, and I assume we become more mentally polarized, and that negates the effects. And we just kind of said why, because we now have control over the physical and emotional expressions, right? And hopefully the lower mental. And we're using it in a more mental way for transformation purposes. And now exoteric astrology in that just became esoteric, essentially, in a weird way, right? If we can say it like that, I don't. The ordinary horoscope is negated. It's not possible, is it? That's of the low-grade human, that when it's entirely correct, infallibly correct. But we're using the influences of the planets intelligently. So then it's that the horoscope is not going to be correct, because you are in control of how that energy is being used, right? If you're not in charge of it, it will be in charge of you. So you either take the reins or you're just going to get run around until you take the reins, I guess, And then we'll be expressing those lower aspects, like all the way down at the bottom, as opposed to the higher when the wheel is reversed. So yeah, this is great stuff, man. This is a great overview. Did you see what I sent you about the sex impulse this week, and about how the effect that had? Here, I'll have it right here, actually. For some reason, I think this pertains right now, because we're talking about
I think I remember seeing you send it. I'm not sure I don't think I looked at it yet, though. Was it one of the video shorts you sent me, or was it an article?
No, it's from one of the books.
Oh, yeah, you sent me a screenshot, right? Or something like that?
Yeah. So I'm just gonna read this.
Well, where is it?
I don't know. I don't have that marked here. I think it was probably in the sutras.
Gotcha.
In the light of the soul. But it says freedom from attachment is brought, and we're talking about attachment here, essentially, right? Because when we're when we are the lower grade at our lower grade, then we're full of attachment. Right? And it says freedom from attachment is brought about as the fires of desire are overcome. And through the sacral center is depicted. And though the sacral center is depicted as having specific relation to the sex nature, yet that sex nature, as it expresses itself on the physical plane, is symbolic of any attachment between the soul and any object of desire other than the spirit. I mean, this is just so profound, because sex ends up being the catch-all expression of attachments, right? It's like, it is the catch-all. And then, so this can be really, and this goes back to the lunar lord, and this, the lunar lords, and being free from that. This is the work, man. This is a lot of work in that. And so we're talking about this, but it should be mentioned the ways to break free from these glamours and illusions. And that's ultimately what these books are doing for us, right? So we're learning how to break free from the lower expressions and from these attachments and stuff. But yeah, if we look through and went, the lunar lords and how it has a lot to do with how we express ourselves on the physical plane. So it's just related to matter, essentially. Because we have the triplicity between the sun and the moon and the earth, right? So we can see that. So ultimately, our aspiration should be towards spirit, which would be towards the higher expression of all those things that are in the the mantras of the zodiac down below. Yeah, man, I don't know, that's great. This is great stuff. It certainly shows the need for, an understanding of our personality, chart, and our attributes and our leanings. Because I think it just helps us. All the sages have said, you have to know yourself, right? Before you could know the gods and the universe. And a study of our astrology is I want to say it's, in a lot of ways, probably semi-essential in order to build that knowledge of ourself. Otherwise, it would take it would be really frustrating if you didn't have that, right? I mean, not to say it can't be done, but it would be frustrated effort. This just helps us see things so much more instantaneously, really, and move past it and get control of it.
Yeah.
And then reverse it. I mean, that's my thought. Carla, I know there's lots of astrologers out there, but Carla changed my life in a matter of 2 hours talking to her for the first time.
Right. No doubt.
She put me right in my place. It was amazing. Exactly what was needed. And then it just went to work. It goes to work in you because it's there now and you can be aware of it. I don't know. It's just And he says, he says that there weren't any of these astrologers then. Things have changed and come along quite a bit.
Yeah, well, this was written back in the 30s, 40s, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I was looking for that, where that was referenced, because I noted that astrologers eventually find it necessary to cast 3 horoscopes or 3 charts of the physical, the body of nature, one primarily emotional, and the third on the mental impulses and conditions. And I feel like that's what we're getting with Carla. Would I be mistaken?
Well, and it does put us up onto the mental plane,
Yeah.
right? It's removed, it's taking you out of that astral, emotional nature and putting you into contemplation on something, very, very real. So, and it says here, mankind is on the verge of becoming mental.
Mm-hmm. And that we know, right? Effects are felt first in the mental body. The names of the planets are not the result of arbitrary choice, but the planets name themselves. And there was some discussion here too about 7 planets eventually to become, was it 10?
Well,
Didn't we read that?
yeah, 12. Yeah.
12, right.
Yeah.
Right. One for each, one to coincide with each constellation. Right.
Yeah, and this is just it's awesome.
So it will be good when Carl's able to join us so we can kind of talk through some of this again. Right, and bring more clarity to it for us and others.
As I read, but as I read this, mankind is on the verge. It's just, everybody can do this work now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like mankind can do this. Like we can do it. And that, ultimately means that, we're at a we're getting close to our soul.
Mm-hmm.
We're the possibilities of enlightenment are really here. The opportunity is here. We should be taking advantage, we hope to be taking advantage of that.
And I think we're seeing some of that. It's just not, maybe it's more widespread than we really see or know, but I see more of the mental processing in people than versus others, I guess.
Yeah, there's glimmers, there's that common monastic aspect there, right? But man, but I'm not trying to be negative, but we are mental partially, right? And then like right away, we include our emotions in it. Like then the emotional, then some predilection is there or some emotion joins in.
That draws you back a bit, as we were talking about earlier, and it's tough. It can be very difficult to get up there and stay up there and not find yourself getting drawn back. And I think we've talked about this before, where those pullbacks are there's always going to be those pullbacks, but we need to get to a point where we're still staying up here, even though we're drawn down here to deal with whatever it is, and it really needs to be the synthesis of all 3 up at the mental, right?
Man. What will bring us up is knowledge, right? This knowledge, like Carla says, this material draws us up, and it invokes the response that's needed to draw us up. Because if we're not being drawn up and we're not gaining knowledge like this to draw us up, you're not going anywhere.
Right.
We're drowning. We're underwater, stuck, drowning essentially. And it's, we don't have to be. But you're right. But as we continue to add this knowledge, even if you're, I don't want to talk like that. You could be kind of a nut, right? And well, I mean, we all are. Don't get me wrong. But as we're doing, as we're doing this, it's as you're identifying your attachments and you become aware of them, you're much more likely to let them go.
Right.
You're like, oh, because you see, oh, well, this is ridiculous because I don't need to be drawn to this. And then at some point, these magnetic attractions can be released. We pull ourselves away. And then at some point, next thing you know, yeah, because you've done all this, you've got all this knowledge and you've done all this contemplation and you've been drawn up, next thing you know, you're free from your attachments and desires. We don't have to go to a monastery anymore.
Right.
This is the work of the East. We're doing it in our day, wrought out in the crucible of daily life.
And so we're doing it in the way of the West.
Yeah. And this is the new way. It's the more evolved way. Actually.
Right.
We're not running off to the caves or to the ashram in India and leaving our families and ditching everybody. And
yeah. Well,
not that was right. It was appropriate at that time. This is what's appropriate now.
And I think it could even go down to the level of, and everything that you do associated with it, including meditation. So there's still meditation, but even that, Carla even told me once that, you can meditate, but the way of the West is, we don't have to sit there cross-legged like the traditional way of meditating in the East. There's that, you and I talked about it earlier, that having that constant state of meditation, where you can find yourself in that state when you're walking, when you're mowing the lawn, when you're doing anything that you're required to do in your physical state, but you're still in that state of meditation. So we're just doing things differently than they might have been done in some of the ancient past. But the goal is still being worked towards. It should be for everybody, but
it's a, it's a bit longer process because we're still doing our daily, we have our, we have life going along with it, but at the same time, it's even like there's opportunity in that because you're overcoming all these challenges on a daily basis. And you're working through all this stuff.
Yeah, it's all there. All of it's meant to be a lesson in some shape or form. Absolutely, no doubt. And it's important to kind of recognize that too, because you can't put yourself into a position where there's purpose behind all of that stuff that we have to do. And there are lessons in it. And so it shouldn't necessarily just be avoided because you think it's throwing you off from this course. Does that make any sense? I'm not sure that it does.
When you said that, my thought was, well, you did this to you.
Yes. Yeah.
This is
like
what happened. Your life is what you made it.
Right. And you've committed to it and you have to deal with it. But at the same time, you're pursuing this path.
Now you're extricating yourself essentially from those things to become clear.
Right. Right. But it doesn't mean that you're just going to be like, all right, bye-bye family. That's like, you still have that, but that's a part of it. That's a part of the building block in the growth process. Because in this sense,
there's also this shift happening, which is a very big shift, I want to say, from your south node to the north node.
Right. And we have to make that shift because that south node is where we come in, and we're supposed to be heading toward that north node to get us to where we're going.
And then you have your rising sign too. So you got all these,
yeah,
and
then how they all interconnect and work together. And
yeah,
when you look at the bigger picture and zoom out from it, and you kind of look at it holistically, it gives you a clear view of why you're here, what you're supposed to be doing,
right.
and give it a little indication of not anything specific that might be coming your way, but a transition that's coming your way, so you can kind of be ready for that.
I know you say, and when you yeah, when you say that something's coming your way, it's like
yeah, but I don't mean it in terms of like,
I know
you're gonna win $1 million or something like that. It doesn't get to that level of specificity, and it probably shouldn't. And if it does, you might want to question who's giving you that information.
It's like when you say something coming your way, I want to say it's like it's a movement into more subtleness. It's the transition into things become this whole, the energetic thing, the recognition of the subtleties of it. That's the movement that I see, is like you become more aware of the energies, you become more aware of the heightened faculties of the senses, and you become aware of the higher energies when Neptune comes, and Uranus, and the electricity that comes with some of these, and what they're bringing is just, sometimes it can be super intense, and we got to work with that. And you need the outlet, right? We talked about that. Like, you have to have the right outlet. Otherwise, it can take on a life of its own.
Right.
And then you got this inertia going in the wrong way. And then you went down this alley, and now you got to fight your way out again.
Right.
Because you just did this to you.
You just did this to you, but again, it probably worked out the way it was supposed to for you to take that, because these are all growth opportunities. Every time you have one of these transitions, it's your next growth opportunity coming down the pike. And you did this to you, and here's how you're going to kind of work through it. And you work through it the way you're intended to work through it, because that's the lesson that you were supposed to gain from it.
Right. Yeah. There's so no, you're right. But there is an opportunity. What I've been told is, at some point, you can fall back into ignorance if you consciously chose to do so.
Absolutely.
So, that's dumb. Don't do that. We can't do that. Once we sweep the house clean, we can't go letting in a bunch more demons, right?
Right.
So there's that. I mean, you got to hold the line. Keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And really stay the fight, stay the course, fight the good fight. You can just run the race. You can keep coming up with those analogies there, but yeah. No, this is great, man.
Just imagine for a minute. Just imagine for a minute a world. Well, this world, I guess, where everybody could see it through that lens and actively pursue it through that lens. Just kind of try to.
We're looking at very different place, and that would be the new world, and new, heaven on earth, really. I mean.
But it's just we're not there right now, obviously.
Well, you can individually be there because you've taken control.
That's my point, though. If every individual, even though you and I agree this is all interconnected, we're all woven into one. But at the individual level, if they did this in the way that it's supposed to be done, Well, right, it would be the new world. So
Be awesome. That's
it
going
would
to
be
be beautiful. I
awesome.
mean,
It would be
this is
awesome.
Aquarius. It's going to
But
do that.
the thing too is, yes, the path is difficult, no doubt about that. But this isn't something that's not achievable. Like anybody can achieve and do this. It really just takes that resetting of the mind shift and being open.
For faith in Christ, I guess you could say, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all a part of it.
Yeah, there's that, there's like every Bible, all these Bible verses that basically say, follow, pick up your cross and follow me. And
right.
What he meant was pick up your life, become aware of yourself.
Yeah.
And do the work.
Yes, just made me think of a quick point, and I know we're going to have to go here in a few minutes, but ever since I've started this journey, like, and taking it seriously, like we have been for the past few years, it's like I can thumb through the Bible now and really be able to read and see what it's really saying versus just like a blind person opening
There's
up
a
the
Bible verse in this right here. We
looking
just
at
went
it.
through one.
Right. But my point is, a lot of people look at the Bible with kind of closed blind eyes. And they take things for as they are, kind of at face value and as it's written. But when you have an understanding for the deeper meaning and you really can get in touch with yourself, like going through this process, and how many times in the Bible is astrology referenced, it's amazing. And not in a bad way. Like, it's amazing to me to be able to crack that book open now and see it a lot differently than I used to.
Well, the Pleiades, for instance, which it says, canst thou bind the Pleiades? And the Pleiades being the seven sisters, right?
Uh-huh.
I want to say. And wouldn't that, anytime you get seven like that, wouldn't that have, potentially something to do, with the seven, the seven centers, the seven head centers, and can you bind these seven energies? No, sir. So I mean, that's what was being said essentially. Can you bind the energies of these the seven energy? No, you cannot until you do the work. Roll through it on here. Find that it's at the bottom of one of these paragraphs. I love the use of the Bible in all these books.
Oh, right there. Is it the son of? No, is that it right there? The sons of God shot forth like arrows from the bow.
No,
no,
no, I don't think so. It was.
Wasn't, so it had to be further up.
It was at the bottom. I think it was the very last line of one of the paragraphs. I think. Or maybe, you know what, man? Maybe I'm thinking of the Yoga Sutras.
I think we might be thinking of the Yoga Sutras that you and I were looking at.
Yeah,
before we got
online.
My
bad. All
so
right,
we'll refer back to one of your videos because
yeah,
which
in the ocean of the ageless wisdom.
Right. But hey, it's good that came out because that's a good segue. Like it exhibits the importance of looking at a lot of this, all of it really.
I'm blown away by that book.
Well, but in DK even mentions it in multiple books that there's three primary texts that need to be looked at in accordance with this, and it's the Yoga Sutras of Pantanjali, which you can get out of the Light of the Soul, the New Testament of the Bible, and Bhagavad Gita. So We don't cover those here, but it'd be a nice side study for folks out there to thumb through that stuff. And well, we are covering the light of the soul, so we've got that, but
Yeah. Now we can go through those again. You know, suture by suture when we finish some of these, like we're talking about. Like, there's so much opportunity. This is just an endless study.
it is.
Just endless. It's just going to keep going.
Well,
Yeah.
there will be more of it when we come back, I'm sure.
And you can't stress it enough to study every day. You can see the need, you know, to put that time in every day. It's wouldn't
difficult
do
at
it.
first, you know.
Yeah.
But you get to a point where, or at least for me now, it's like it's a hunger I have to fulfill every single day. And even if it's for short, like 10-minute bursts, it's a wise man told me once, just read a page and ponder on that. And I think that might have been you. But yeah, it's like you don't have to read 100 pages at a time. The point is that you're taking this information in, working to synthesize it and build it in. But yeah, you get to a point where, because it was difficult for me at first to want to crack these books open, and now I'm like reading 5 or 6 simultaneously. But
well, yeah, man, I didn't read. I mean, even in college work, I didn't want to read that stuff. I had no interest in it. My interest was I wanted to learn, but I didn't want to learn through reading, essentially. I don't know how to, whatever, how you want to, I was not a reader. And then all of a sudden, I turned 40 and I cracked the Bible open. And I don't know how many days have gone in between 40 and 46 where I haven't read now. Since the minute that I cracked the good book open.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I missed, I'd been missing this.
Where have you been all my life?
Oh my God, what happened, man? You know, like, what did I do? You know?
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. It's
quite similar to me. It was like a furious race to get back caught up. You know, or make up for the 40 years that I hadn't been studying. I was like, you know, I mean, I read the Bible probably for a year. Like every day, like a madman, you know. And to the point where my whole family was like, "Dear, there's something wrong with you. Like, you got to go see somebody." That was when, you know, you're going through all the changes and you know, you're like, everybody get away from me. I don't want to talk to you. You don't know what's going on. Let's talk about Jesus. You know, like all of that crazy.
Right.
You know, that whole crazy, furious seeking energy was there. But then, you know, Initiation Human and Solar came along like probably a year after that or something. You know, I get a funny story though, dude. I'll say it. This is funny. I had listened to some pastor and it came up to reference PS, like Psalms, like it was like Psalm whatever number, right? Name a number. And I was like, oh, I need to go look at this. So I Google PS whatever. And it takes me to the Pistis Sophia, which is the Gnostic Bible, basically. And it's beautiful. Well, I opened that up and I read whatever number that this Christian dude was telling me to go look at. I end up freaking reading the whole Pistis Sophia, like within I don't even know. Fast. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And that, it blew my mind apart, you know, and then I'm like, man, it's pretty cool that this Christian dude is referencing this.
Right.
And yeah, he was not referencing that. He was referencing Psalms. And I
Right.
end up reading the Gnostic gospel. Oh man. And that kind of opened me up to like, hey man, you know, this is all like kind of in line. You
It's
know,
funny
this
how that
all
worked
makes
out
sense
for you.
together. Huh?
I said it's funny how that worked out for you,
Oh man, forget
but
it.
it just goes to show, I mean, was it supposed to work out for you any other way? I don't think so. I think it
Oh, it was great, man.
he may have been referencing something different, but it took you to where you found yourself still,
Oh,
because that's where it needed to go.
well, not only that, when I found it, I referenced it in sacred texts,
Mhm.
the website, sacred
Yeah.
texts. When you go into sacred text, it's like walking through the what you would see the halls of wisdom or something, like in like the library of the, you know, in heaven or something.
Yeah.
It's like all like every sacred text. And I'm going, whoa, I got to read all these. And then at some point, very shortly after that, Initiation Human and Solar came along, and I was like, oh my God.
So you're walking through the library and the temple in that movie, Doctor Strange.
Oh man, it was awesome.
Oh,
Yeah, but it was very freaky because it created a lot of tension. Like DK
I'm
talks about
sure.
tension.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of confusion, but the tension that built up where I was like, this is where the whole collective going this way with pure Christianity. And then this whole mysticism, esoteric stuff is over here. And it's like, I got to go. I just, that was a separation from the distinct individuality came about from that, you know, again, quickly. It's the breaking point. So, yeah, but I'm sorry. I thought it is a funny, that is kind of, I mean, in a spiritual way, that's kind of a funny story, I think.
I think it is.
Yeah. Supposed to be reading Psalms and I'm reading the Gnostic
Now, did you
gospel.
ever go back and read the psalm that he was actually referencing?
No. I probably never turned the channel back on again after I opened Pistis Sophia. Once that whole world opened, I was like, oh. Well, when I read the Bhagavad Gita for the first time, man,
Yeah.
I knew in that instant it was the same as reading the Bible.
Right.
And I was like, anybody reading this in India is having the same sort of experience that I'm having here. And I imagine somebody in India reading the Bible, and I'm over here reading the Bhagavad Gita, and I'm going, we're the same people.
Right.
This is the same thing.
Right.
This is the same building, the same emotional tension. It's building this, you know, dedicated, that's very sixth ray, you know, idealism,
Right.
that focus for devotional focus. And that was all, you know, right there. And I was like, okay, I got it. You know, and then the Brotherhood of Humanity follows right in along that. And I realized that I'm the same as some shaman in Peru and some devotee in India. And we're all happening right now.
Right.
And this is what we're doing. We're brothers. And then things started getting pretty awesome after that. You know, but anyway, I'm sorry. I'm talking.
No worries. No, it was good. A lot of good discussion today, even on a few short pages. So I think we read about 30 minutes and then talked about it for 30. So that's pretty good. And then we'll probably talk about it some more when we get Carla to give us a guest spot.
I can't
online.
wait.
Yeah.
We'll talk to her. We'll talk about that. But all right, yeah, I do got to get going too.
All right. Well, let's call it a wrap, and then we'll pick up start up rule 11 in our next session. We're finally
Right.
past rule 10.
Sounds good. All right. See you next week.
Sounds good.